She had always believed men had it easy in dating, apps overflowing with matches, endless options just a swipe away. And if they were single, well, that had to be by choice. So when she decided to create a fake dating profile and pose as a man for a week, it was just supposed to prove her point, maybe even give her a laugh. Almost from the moment she switched that little gender icon, her screen went quiet in a way she'd never experienced before. No constant pings, no "hey beautiful" notifications lighting up her phone, just silence. And when messages did arrive, they were curt, skeptical, and sometimes outright dismissive. It was like she had stepped into a parallel world where being noticed was the exception, not the rule. What started as a playful experiment began to feel like a descent into a cold, lonely reality she never knew existed. And by the time the week was over, she wasn't feeling smug or triumphant. She was shaken, because in the silence, the rejections, and the indifference, she had glimpsed something she couldn't unsee. A truth about modern dating that would challenge everything she thought she knew. Her life before the experiment was ordinary, in a comfortable, predictable way. She worked a steady marketing job, had a tight circle of friends, and a dating life that, while not perfect, was at least active. Every time she opened her dating apps, she would scroll through dozens of messages, some charming, some crude, but all reminders that she was seen. She had never really thought about what dating was like for men beyond the casual assumption that it was easier for them. After all, she'd been told over and over, by media, by friends, by her own observations, that men were the ones in control. They were the ones doing the choosing. It was during a late-night conversation with her roommate that the idea first surfaced. Her roommate had been scrolling through her own phone, sighing at the latest match, who had immediately asked for something wildly inappropriate. Jokingly, she suggested they switch roles, create profiles as men, just to see what it was like. At first, she laughed it off, but the thought lingered. It became an itch. What would it feel like to be on the other side? To be the one sending the first message instead of waiting for them to arrive? She told herself it was just curiosity, maybe even research for a funny blog post. But somewhere deeper, there was a desire to prove that the struggle men talked about. The endless rejections, the silence, was exaggerated. She was certain she could do it better if she were in their shoes. So one Friday night, she set it up. She chose a stock photo of an average-looking man. Friendly smile, casual clothes, nothing flashy. She kept the profile simple, mirroring her real one, but stripping away anything gender-specific. A few hobbies, a few favorite books, some light-hearted facts. And then, with a small surge of excitement, she switched her gender to male and opened the app. She expected the flood to come, within minutes. Maybe not as big as when she was herself, but enough to keep her entertained. Instead, the minutes turned into hours, and the hours turned into a quiet that pressed on her in a way she'd never felt before. The first message came late the next morning. It was short, cold. A single word that didn't invite conversation. She replied anyway, keeping things polite, but the response never came. By the end of the second day, she realized that if she wanted interaction, she had to initiate it. So she started sending messages, carefully crafted, friendly, personalized. Out of the 20 she sent, 3 replied. 2 ended abruptly, the third faded after a few exchanges. The rejections weren't loud or dramatic. They were quieter than that profiles that never replied, matches that unmatched instantly, a sea of indifference. The more she reached out, the more she began to feel the weight men often talked about but she'd never believed. It wasn't just rejection. It was the sense of being invisible, of existing in a space where no one was eager to know you, where every interaction felt like an uphill climb against suspicion or disinterest. She experimented, changing her profile photo, rewriting her bio, making her messages wittier, more charming, more vulnerable. Nothing seemed to change the numbers in any meaningful way, and then came the harsher moments, outright dismissive messages, condescending remarks, occasional insults about looks or assumptions about intentions. The anonymity of the screen gave some people a cruel confidence, and she was on the receiving end of it in a way she had never experienced before. By day 4, she began to feel drained. Logging into the app became a small emotional gamble. Would there be a spark of hope or another silent reminder that she wasn't wanted here? She started noticing patterns. Many profiles of women had disclaimers about being tired of games or only here for serious connections, but very few of them seemed willing to engage with the men who reached out. She realized that for every man who might send an unwanted message, there were countless others sending genuine, thoughtful ones that went unanswered, and she was now one of them. The experiment had stopped being fun. It was becoming uncomfortable, and the discomfort wasn't from being treated badly outright. It was from being treated as though she didn't matter at all. The breaking point came on the 6th day. She had matched with someone who seemed genuinely aligned with her profile's interests. She wrote what she thought was the best message of the week: personal, engaging, warm. No reply came that day, or the next. She checked obsessively, each time feeling that dull ache in her stomach. By now, she knew what it meant. It wasn't just that the person wasn't interested. It was that she was never even worth the courtesy of a response. In that moment, it hit her with a force she hadn't expected. This was how so many men lived their dating lives. Not in the drama-filled extremes she'd imagined, but in the slow erosion of self-worth through small, repeated acts of being ignored. She thought back to her own dating experiences, the times she had ignored messages because she was busy or uninterested or simply didn't feel like replying. She had never considered what those silences felt like on the other side. Now she knew, and it was more than just disappointing. It was exhausting. The cumulative effect wasn't just about romance. It was about how being unseen seeped into a person's sense of self. By the end of that night, she shut off the app, feeling something she hadn't felt before in dating: genuine hopelessness. On the 7th day, she deleted the profile. She told herself it was because the experiment was over, but deep down she knew she couldn't bear another day of that quiet. She sat in her kitchen that morning, phone in hand, thinking about everything she'd experienced. A week earlier, she had been certain that men exaggerated the struggles of dating. Now, she wasn't sure of anything. The experiment hadn't made her feel sorry for men in some patronizing way. It had made her respect the resilience it must take to keep showing up, to keep trying in the face of such consistent indifference. It had also made her question the design of dating itself, the algorithms, the culture, the unspoken rules that seemed to favor one side without anyone fully realizing it. Most of all, it had made her reconsider her own behavior. How many times had she been on the other side of the silence? How many messages had she ignored, not realizing they were small investments of hope from someone who might have already been carrying 100 rejections? She returned to her own profile that week, this time as herself. The matches and messages came in as usual, but she saw them differently now. Each one, even the ones she wasn't interested in, felt like an effort worth acknowledging. She couldn't change the entire dating culture, but she could change how she moved through it, because she had learned something that couldn't be unlearned. Behind every ignored message was a person, and sometimes the quiet hurt more than any cruel word ever could.